Hello, Americans, people of Connecticut and New England. Hartford Hospital and other triages, they have collusion slash S. For example, when I was in first or second grade, there was one instance with people from, like, I was waiting for in the line for a school. People I don't know came up behind me and told me to go around the corner, something, and they explained. So I went around the corner. The bus is now all of a sudden is a little different, it's a little late. Go around the corner, and right when I turned the corner, a kid punched me in the ear. A Rick C. Faglione. I didn't know how to punch. I looked at him angry outside, and he kept walking. And then so I went home on the bus. That's it. And I never saw him. I never saw him like once or twice. I saw him near a bike rack. But I usually didn't drive my bike to school. But these are people I never hardly ever saw. I never had a class with him in that campus. But he's involved with some doctors and various agencies and courts, judges and prosecutors and their family members, with foreign countries, overt criminal enterprises and private ones, per people, intelligence families near me too. They have a bunch of people like a Fred Grisey, and that attack and other things associated with their identity theft, fraud, slanders, and federal evidences crimes and organized crimes with courts still, all that at the same time. There's a Justin Klavinskis and a bunch of people tied to a Perone and people across the street for them. So these are people involved with the World Trade Center attack. And it's nothing personal. They have privacy to maintain self-valid collusions with sequence shifts and collusions leaving out the foreign names involved at the same time with them. As people that had been using corners of streets and corners of schools. There are attacks since I was a kid, which is also communications. It brought up how these are also people connected at and next to the World Trade Center the morning of it and the night before, insidiously. Investigators, they're recorded changing and faking what I said online, and then going fishing with it. There are too many names of the identities of the law. They're going to pretend anyway. The way the breaching method knew they would at countries A through Z. Forgiveness is because where the breaching method is discernible. For example, how it was entrenched northern colonies and southern colonies more than 13, and then America's founders were born. It was entrenched even with slavery roles only permitted, and then America's founders were born. And they had to hide. They declassified things for us to understand, to amend as our appreciation to the word of the law and to the nature of the law. They communicated for us to appreciate how it was still collusion slash S with such. At the same time, with the breaching method hiding behind the differences of guilt, appreciation, narratives, natures, leaving out and or blaming on other things, others, ourselves, things that it caused. That nature itself demonstrates that. Because nature demonstrates all those things were about at the same a whole bunch of different things, but they were all about the breaching method that was entrenched. Only allowed all to be roles as the method slash S. And the slash part is criminal insidiousness. Criminal insidiousness natures of positive treatments and or negative treatments and the difference. This is hyper programming. Babayaros. Y Babayaros sees. Long lost campus trains us through the breeze. In other words, yin yang and alpha and omega were revealed to be taught together. There are identities of campuses at countries A through Z. There are formal slash, informal people, even when they're countering each other, the people and the leaders, they're still measure and maintain forcing other things others ourselves blame for things that nature itself and that our founders, if we pay attention, they communicated it. But why and how they had to pretend other at the same time, they communicated about that too. Through James Madison, it shows simultaneously that everyone had him wrong and the other leaders wrong. Everyone's syntax in there defending it. People have been tending you guys practical reason. So to use Immanuel Kant's phrase, you guys can't be honest with any word sequence. Would have brought up how you guys can't be honest about how the part that's in the Old Testament that says only defend right here, where the names of the people of sciences will come together, in the part that comes before it. You can't be honest about the part that comes before it. You guys can't be honest about the part that comes after it, like with the tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. You can't be honest about those phrases. Then you're gonna then you want to debate everything else after that, from Adam and Eve and after. You can't be honest about that. And where there are exceptions, you have delusions. And where are styles of logic pretending other, you are reliant upon pretending that there is expert value that is not it. That the value of political differences it means what it isn't. No party had the right to vote on slavery, except for where and how everyone was tortured. In fact, cheating nature extorted. In fact, cheating nature enslaved, therefore physically, even our founders. This is what James Madison described for them, plural, who themselves, through James Madison, described themselves as people who had to leave their names unknown. And they wanted they described through him for us to understand why and how we're not supposed to allow anyone to pretend that they know the name of them, the rest of our plural founders, besides James Madison. Demonstrably why they did that, it's because they knew that people would pretend that the people at the Declaration of Independence were our founders. The breaching method measured and maintained other things, others ourselves, blamed for its roles with slavery, northern colonies, southern colonies only permitted. Its roles with women's, way worse than women's suffrage. This breaching method needed all counters, collusion /S too, because it knew that nature itself will continually demonstrate to people A through Z, at countries A through Z, at locations, areas, and states, and to the leaderships, which we need one voice to communicate with the people. You guys can't even communicate with yourselves as to self properly, or would have brought this up. People from Wethersfield will confess this and confirm it. Everyone wants it. It's not just Wethersfield, but any individual can only speak for themselves. And grouped and using humanity's volume. Simultaneously, there is a correlation by further simultaneously positive or negative. Or it is forced. A special difference is forced away. Earth, the ocean's a special difference, is forced away because we have been using systems of bridge from nature's where it shows us how to appreciate positive and negative with our syntax as sophisticated science. The presidents / chiefs have missed, to an extent, how and why the agencies are used foreign defense. They don't have an identity that hasn't been hyper-criminally foreign influence. Not one person had an education, came through a campus. In other words, they're using, like I brought up sophistication one time when President Biden, president / chief, no, Biden was in office. I brought up sophistication just relative to how the breaching method was a hyper sophistication, for example, so to speak. it's as that which was northern colonies and southern colonies, more than 13, entrenched, even with roles, with even with slavery and all the other things, against all women, so all against everyone, against all native, so against everyone, against black peoples, white survivors, communication, and hurt everyone who wasn't who didn't sense for the breaching method roles also, because everything it did and does, it keeps done through others to keep its hyper forensics trail. I have a degree in English, a double major in English arts and communications, but I also had people, my campuses recorded in the process of making confessions to me and pretending other, with people that do that, like those people that use the corners of the buildings and corners of streets. There is an O'Neill family also with West Hartford campuses as an educator who has their family involved with others. With Weathersfield, there's ones with name of Bajerio. I never saw him on the inside of a campus in my life, like a Subby Bajerio. And a, a, a Subby Scalora, I don't know if he goes to Central Connecticut State University. He's with people on Facebook, recorded involved with the FBI Director Robert Luskin and people with the World Trade Center attack. Also, Claudia Scalora and others that, with the name Scalora, he didn't say the rest of it, that are involved with sequence shifts and predicate acts of Weathersfield Police and the Britain Superior Court with them personally and professionally, with other police departments with them too, and campuses, and further with a proven principal child abuser involved with way worse then and now. More names he confessed will record, confirm, demonstrate. They're changing and faking digital records. These are also police departments, like Weathersfield Police Department attached me to fake being there and speaking with him as a kid. Wasn't at all. And as an adult, wasn't at all. These are also police families that are personally and professionally involved with the families of houses and of businesses next to Hartford Hospital, as a bunch of people involved with predicate acts on my street. Rick C. Paglione, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed with others. They have collusions with an O'Brien family and a Cololo family, with federal evidences, crimes with databases, with this Leahy family, and with O'Brien Silver, and his roles with identity theft, fraud, slanders, putting fake things in databases and use of corners of streets. Also with the O'Neill family and WTNH and the FBI. And WTNH has other sources along Route 175 and with corners of streets on that. Houses on corners of the street per them. And they're bringing it up because they want to pretend it's about privacy. But they're confessing these things because also through silence. Because I never had a word of conversation in my life, especially at the police station. I mean, ever, anywhere, with the older police brother. I only know he walked by me, someone said his name and knew I was going to remember it, relative to their use of corners and exceptions, too, consciously, as one's time collusion /S with a whole bunch of other countries. And then with a use /S of sense and sensibilities, where people pretend and fake things, relative to where the how left out sickly distinctly, but also sickly non-distinctly. There was a breaching method that forced roles with those things. So all locations, areas, and states could be used remotely from abroad. Also having been affected through a breaching method, so it could keep that, things like that, like criminal foreign influences blamed correctly more and more, but only because the breaching method, the same one, non-distinctly here and there, is being demonstrated to humanity. But all natures of sophistication were all shown they needed to pretend other. So what they do is they take the pictures of the presidents and things they say and they try to push it. Because they have help at locations, areas, of states that are only capable of defending their difference. And then especially when they have differences with others. You guys are ill with subject treatments. So I went out of my way to mind my business. A bunch of they put fake social relationships In other words, and I sat on the wall instead of playing with the thing because they were trying to. I didn't want to describe it with Tim O'Brien. His roles with people putting fake things in databases, and he wasn't even in my class. Yeah, or another teacher in the same grade, which was exploited between the campuses all consciously, inter and intra cities. A bunch of people further with Rocky Hills campus. So you have good people that are only stay evil because they want to speak through others. And then it has to be demonstrated. Then you have to show them. Like there are more leaders of the kids of Weathersfield who have obligations not to hide from what I say online. They're telling people they're changing faith and what's values online, and also with whiting forensics is increasingly collusion slash S with retired police chiefs and their families involved with people that attacked me at corners of schools I went to, and hiding the communications that was involved with. Mr. Abruzzi is one of the people involved as my fifth grade teacher. Increasingly, people before and after I was in fifth grade have roles with body dumping spots and confessions, also in the formal statements, and then to pretend that people know the people. And it's a real short thing that they're building upon it next to each campus. Increasingly, people tied to it as Paul Apted is also one of the ones with courts and judges involved with various nature of organized crimes, sexual and medical offenders of kids, and with his sister. I never had a word of conversation with either of them. They were influenced. There were proofs that they had a picture of me standing in front of them to make it look other. That's also one of the things that people involved with the uses of the corner of the thing. They're putting fake things. They're making there are only three branches of government. They're making them describe and defend things they can't go back and have discerned with our values slash. And then these are people also involved with the World Trade Center attack, where and how Connecticut had roles in intra cities, and with and as ones then further already collusion with all sides of criminal and civil cases, news, the body dumping spots relative to the crime scenes, including campuses recorded involved with more then and now too. So you have sense and sensibilities that styles that are relying upon what other people say. Can't afford to have what's real online. Weathersfield town offices has roles with the identities of communications locations and their syntax regarding it. They have all kinds of. They've been faking phone transcripts, changing and faking phone transcripts, changing and faking digital evidences. So there are means recorded to show how they are and have been using the identities of the police forms, for example, individually grouped in together too. Where, how, too, the branches of government individually grouped in together, they have collusion slash S, only capable of being relative to where and to how. Campuses A through Z are sickly distinctly, but also sickly non distinctly. Syntax ordered by the breaching method, self value, through other reasons slash S. Unfathoming, not fathoming how it could easily use all locations slash S. And per how computers work. But see, the names of the people of the sciences have needs simultaneously to make things about them seem complicated that are not, and seem simple that are not. Tactical ulterior from how nature shows us to appreciate that difference. English was revealed to be taught this way, when other languages too, valuing in fact the difference, because the ancients were shown the evolution's fruits, gifts, means out of nowhere, positive value nature progressions are affected by appreciating difference slash S to discern the difference of that one identity of all them as natures, that which is generating individual species bodies of individual bodies, distinct individual species bodies, individual made up of a whole bunch of individuals, and group differences, two eyes, two sexes, no, two parts of time, connected, two parts of time, past to an extent you know of, and the active now to an extent you know. connected, grouped distinctly from how the value of seasons and of this one, even if it doesn't complete, we know their value already here now to an extent, too, connected to the active, grouped too, active slash group. Nature's complete identity also has grouped identities of relationship to its complete self, manifest wherever its individual self is discernible, such as it is, through it generating also two eyes across species bodies. It has the difference between sight discernment. Even if someone is blind, it is about three identities of hyper invisible but still discernible. The invisible but still discernible comes with the hyper invisible but still discernible. It is the body of nature itself we can discern as why and how, as how what we need to appreciate more than one name for a verb, such as a present participle or a past participle, for example. Verbs inflected where and how their identity doesn't change. Their identity relationship to nature's complete identity relationship to itself has them not as a main verb, for example, but the main verb is as a verb the value. In other words, there's a present participle and a past participle, and this is about time because this is about forever nature. The identity that is making more of itself as nature through temporary slash lasting space nature. And English was revealed to be taught this way. Many pray. And see, also, these are people, Rick C. and Faglione is recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with people that spied on me, who were in my classes. And they made one exception in middle school. And he sat across the room from me. And it was like someone times where someone's going to walk to their seat as people connect. And Rick C. and Faglione said there's a Harris family. And the year before I went to that school, I went 1 through 6 at that school. And the year before I went to Highcrest, I went to a school that closed down for kindergarten. And there's a Harris family is in the records. And in other words, they're putting fake things with their kid, with their family, Kevin Harris, and people with Quinnipiac University, and next to Central Connecticut State University. They also have a Kyle Gill recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed collusion /S with them, with intelligence families from Wethersfield. On my area, and will tell you this too. And they were abused their kids too. But then, and then like people, they have the girls hurt sickly distinctly from the boys, but also non-distinctly. They're using investigators of certain things, asking them questions like that to measure and maintain they're going to leave things out. And then that was exploited in further context, /S. Like increasingly people and places associated with the former Judge Smith and with the Judge Killian. He is recorded involved with digital crimes. I didn't mention it when I was there because he's involved with the torture method /S. And people with this name Leahy that faked conversations with me. Then he's trying to record me there as a judge who's involved with multiple judges and prosecutors and their family members and victims advocates involved with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, wire crime acts and methods, and as a bunch of people with the networks involved with criminally foreign influence uses of all ages and natures of campuses, including fire and medical ones, and the differences of guilt, collusion slash S. Not just with that. This is where and how styles of logic, natures of logic, have been stayed fake while pretending other, even with black people's whites of eyes. We were, and how a breaching method was involved with it, and we have other in our faces replacing it. When those subjects are brought up, whether how they're brought up in formal or in the arts, measured is maintained. Everyone's paying attention to the organized crimes involved with it, the criminal and serious nature, even if they don't know what that is. Criminal foreign influence. People can sense it with black people's whites of eyes. There's criminally foreign influence. Criminal foreign influences are involved with it, but there are also hyper criminal foreign influences involved with it, and they're also generated, but that by that one influence to need to hide life progressions, and actually what was is the value of the past, the value slash S in the past, in their relativity. To hide relativity itself. Everything is about relativity slash hyper relativity. Having two eyes generated across species bodies, and all exceptions with this in demonstration of the same. Three identities of relationship to itself are bound. See cell nucleus, cell body, cell wall slash S. And the identity of value coming through a plant life. And water and its elements, and gases and their elements being shown, positive, negative. The invisible but still discernible slash hyper invisible but still discernible identity of the complete identity of the plant itself and of its type. I don't know if they call it. They don't call it. I don't know if they call it a species. Seeds, plant life. It's a good question. I have to look up on Google. People, please YouTube ground. We can make a movie where people, someone, people at different locations, they start do something to not change the world, free the world at the same time. Our means, we mean stack plan. In other words, also, it would be too long when I go into it. But we're gonna need like I mean, we can make hyper positives out of negatives. We're gonna have to pay attention to where and how the suburbs were designed tactically to nature, to have nature demonstrate with negative value, nature progressions, acts, and natures. Before America's founders were born, we're gonna have to understand how. Before Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492, already at all locations, areas, and states, every single place the human species body had a body. A breaching method had already been a body, entrenched by and as the only identity of order. Entrenched, took possession of hyper order, so to speak. Order slash hyper order, so to speak. All whisper creek. All databases lie, and still religion fill. Betrayal tribes. In other words, please get me off the fake conversations with Channel 3 News. Channel 3 News is also, the agencies and their sources interbranch are recorded. They're discrediting what people say online, and they're doing other things to get the algorithms messed up while they're influencing them. They're torturing them. There's a torture method. While it's extortion slavery, it's clearer than day. The people of the suburbs have fact sheet nature oriented slavery where they assess values and in positions why how they are that way. You guys left out exceptions and exception nature. So increasingly, uh, a big CM faculty loan sought me out after he graduated to record, confess, demonstrate, confirm with others too at different years apart as total strangers seeking me out as time coordinated collusion slash S to make a fake exception of knowing me and with people that totally fake that as ones increasingly have from other areas ties to themselves and people ties to them who planted evidence on my street from other areas and were brought up by my educators who are sabotaging people's evidences preemptively. Increasingly, people associated with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and his lawyer, Robert Chevalier, and various natures of federal criminals. They have collusions with identity theft, fraud, slanders, also with medical databases and fake conversations with people. And they have collusions with people that have been putting attacks at people at corners of buildings as confessions, where they're perjury. Then they're pretending other people are lying. Where and how we're going to look at a new way of looking at algebra, too. By the way, and values like values, nature's identity to the extent we could discern. It comes with its complete identity relationship to itself, and the only increasing value of that. So Facebook itself, and a bunch of ways, and people with them, and Weathersfield Police, their Facebook page, and the people switching names, forging names, and fake conversations ties to kids, and me when I was a kid, and me when I was an adult, as ones who have also been planting evidences on all sides of my house, collusion slash S. These are also people with whole careers kept criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw. Also, increasingly, there are people tied to a Perone family and educators of theirs involved with mayors with some untimely deaths and people with Hartford Hospital with identity theft, fraud, slanders. I never saw a Perone family on a campus in my life, and people across the street. That's why I was laughing. It was something. It was something I could sense with a Coach Hagenbar. I never had a personal conversation with him at all. And John Mano sought me out to bring that into his confessions when I had to stay back and do my senior year again because of one class, which is also increasingly people involved with the World Trade Center attack and syntax regarding their confessions pretended only a statement involving Washington, D.C. I never had a word of conversation personally with that teacher. Her and the other teacher I had, the speech class I took again the next year, both of them have roles with people associated with home break-ins in my area, and a former detective Dylan, and a guy who said he was his partner. They also have collusions with people with the businesses, and like Home Depot, Lowe's. Home Depot is the only one I saw on. But in other words, all locations slash S. Like a Casper family too. I never had a word of conversation with them. He's one of the ones that non-verbally confirmed they have collusion slash S. I never saw him on inside or outside of a campus at my grammar school too. Increasingly, people at the campus I went to before that with the Harris family have roles of medical and sexual offenders of kids and involvements with violence and pretending to counter such legitimately. These are also people with the police forms undercover and such like that are collusions with the hallways of the court and with the court's sense and sensibilities being haven't been used remotely since they were kids, abused by what they have their kids involved with too, to hide their actual motivations for their speech and their silence regarding privacy If they wanted privacy, they wouldn't be. They would have gotten onto paper and not hid the confessions they made regarding falsified police reports and switching arresting officers' names with ones I never even had a word of conversation with in my life. But they made nonverbal. In other words, years before, for years before, someone brought I saw from a distance. There's a detective Samud. I'm pretty sure that's the one. Even if it's not, it, it, they're confessing a tie and demonstrating a tie as one of the girls involved with a bunch of girls and herself that were abused when they were kids, and their educators and interbranch families had collusions with that by pretending to legitimately be treating subjects and crime scenes where they had where their family members collusion slash us with them, including multiple times with the same types of things and same at the same spot. So they put fake intelligence. Increasingly, I don't know his name. There was an officer who gave me a ticket. I had to go to the British Superior Court regarding Route 3, and I took the turn and came onto the Route 3. That is increasingly one of the ones involved too with the police departments and their family members involved with people in the British Superior Court with sexual medical offenders of kids and people involved with the World Trade Center attack with other countries and all that. You guys want to, I don't see that. In other words, they're trying to force a quality of fact sheet nature to cover up where already all sides of criminal and civil cases, crime scenes, the news, the courts, they were already the same fact sheet nature collusions with sequence shifts and with other names involvements with those instances and crime scenes and their roles with U/S of organized crimes and a conscious one using consciously distinct natures of organized crimes and of collusions, the difference of guilt of the foreign or the domestic. But like one's constantly increasingly collusions with people at the campuses I went intercities and intra-cities. At Hartford Hospital, like with the Slahy family that faked conversations with me and faked them with the patients that are recorded. There are proofs that they might be undercover because they fake those conversations too. And they say things to pretend you, if you don't say anything, they say things to pretend you had conversations with them or they know you. As people collusions increasingly with the corners of buildings and streets and identity theft, fraud, slanders. Whiting forensics increasingly has collusions intercities with more child offenders at the campuses, include child campuses, but including medical ones. There are people associated with King's Oxford or something, Kingswood or Oxford. I don't know, but there are different private schools that have recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed collusion slash S with where and how they keep the interbranch and their family members, self-value things that with factual nature, quality aspects of nature that no one would self-value, including themselves. Like a Congressman Larson is reportedly involved and demonstrably involved with confessions of people with the name Riley, with the Board of Education, and with the algebra class teacher that repeated sexual things about a girl near me who is increasingly involved with people with Jew syntax in the form of their roles with wire crimes and falsified police reports and organized crimes with Wethersfield police chiefs retired and their intimate ties and their roles with people with predicate acts on my street and their educators with them repeating fake things to their educators with people from off the campuses that need that too. They're hiding what's actually recorded. I have nothing personal against Rick Sanpaglione. It's the Kevin Harris and the Fred Grisette. Too. In other words, I never had a word of conversation with the Kevin Harris. And he tried to punch me. And I blocked out, hit him lightly. And one time, like a Ray Claw, when he first came, I think it was in fourth grade. He came from behind me when I was in the. When they made me turn around, I turned around and he punched me. And then I punched him and he fell on the ground and cried. In other words, they're putting fake things each database each year. They're hiding the other people that were involved with these instances. No. See, programming, people can't be honest about instances. They're instances of appreciation in real life. So how could they do it with computers? Because that was used remotely by a breaching method and its use of the algorithm /S. That one that shows us means to correlation / hypercorrelation, being that body generating things across species bodies. Being that as what is each volume is a distinct identity relationship to itself. Nature's. And nature is a word, hyper additional for identity per me, per YouTuber Anthony Wall. Is a nature word hyper additional for the word identity. For the same reason, we need to have more than one word for a verb, a main verb, a predicate. A predicate, a participle, a present participle, past participle, a gerund. Present, past, we don't have a future participle. 3 distinct identities of hyper invisible, so not discernible, but are still discernible anyway. One way /S. And this is using correlation / correlation. And nature as a word hyper additional for identity because the rest of nature's complete identity, that which has hyper conjunction to the individual part, we know that we could discern that it's not our volume, it's not the volume of the other species bodies that is generating this across species, things across species body. 2 eyes, 2 sexes. 3 parts of time, how bound. 3 hyper invisible but still discernible parts of the rest of the complete nature of any individual part or any complete nature. As an individual, you simultaneously have a semi-nature relationship to the power / might of the human species body, of individual bodies. With the same plan /S, we have tons of them in the same plan. All tactically ulterior from nature's. As the value of the Constitution unabridged, with free speech and exceptions in exception nature, the way it chose us to do it. So that's one of the things. I don't know who that was. They have groups of kids do instant things, and you're not going to see them. You're never going to talk to them again. And then they need to hide that. Sometimes they're shown that. A breaching method used them remotely. I never had a word of conversation with the Nick LaPera. The intelligence communities associated with him and a Mark Violet put him next to me, and the house of Brian Bonin is involved also with the nonverbal confessions of a Nick LaPera and Mark Violet, who have roles also with some untimely deaths, and people from other areas who have roles with and uses of their roles with home break-ins and car break-ins, intercities with the courts, involved with victims advocates, also with the perpetrators of such crimes, with the victims who had and have collusion /S, with such and with other natures of organized crimes at the same time. Increasingly, these are people also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, with having to do with their roles with the houses and with the housing and businesses next to the state capitol in Hartford, Connecticut, as ones also next to news locations. Collusion /S with them with predicate acts, preventing people free speech and pretending they are news legitimate There, even with stories that aren't on crime scenes, people don't realize they're keeping everything used to sense. They're being used to sense too as sensors across the globe, from America to Russia to Ukraine. There are qualities, aspects, and natures of the suburbs, how and why they look the way they do, almost exactly the same. The, Described and valued tactical terror from how James Madison, the plural founders, would have and did communicate for us to appreciate about this. So there is a syntax possession slash hyperpossession that is being forced by hyperform, but through our own. In other words, please get them on paper. And one time they made a phone, like when I was in second or third grade, they made a fire drill. And a girl from another class came up to me and said something about Rick Sanfaglio and me. And pretended like I was in a location with him that I never was. I still didn't know who he was. I told him I don't know him. I don't know. You know. That's another thing they confess doing. Calling people down to opposites, doing that, timing, and they're making confessions while they're pretending other. Increasingly, the people enter and intrust cities. Increasingly, people with Rocky Hill campuses who have ties to a John Maiano are involved increasingly too with some sexual and medical offenders per them. With other not him with sexual things. I don't know. He wouldn't he wouldn't do that. I don't know. But I'm saying he has roles of people involved with that, including judges and prosecutors and people that work with various courts at the same time. John Maiano, he's involved with sequence shifts and people on my area, intelligence families that demonstrated, confirmed, recorded him involved with this. And as he said, it was with the houses and businesses next to Hartford Hospital too. And the timing of right when my car broke, and all of a sudden he shows up to pick me up. How does he know that I need to go to the bus that day? In other words, get them on paper, man. Pray. He's got other ties to him and people involved with him. There's a Robert. I don't even know other names. I think it's a David Santangelo. I never had a word of conversation with David Santangelo. There are also ones they're involved. These are also people increasingly involved with the former Mayor Gold and his family members involved with whiting forensics and medical locations, involved with identity and campuses and their educators. He has also roles with the Perone family and with the Agman family that has roles with my algebra class teacher in high school. And they have roles with a whole bunch of other countries. And here and there, they have sensibilities that leave the hyper foreign force left out and a bunch of fakes with integrity with difference slash S. In other words, they have fake conversations with people on a mass scale. They pretend they have conversations with them. In those conversations, they pretend people were following them. I noticed something associated with this Leahy family and a Lombardo family I've never seen on my street, involved with the fake transcripts and ties to me. Collusions with houses. They have collusions with people that have been planting evidence on my street since I was a little kid, and with the databases at the campuses I went. And they have wire and mail crimes with and as people involved with them too, next to the networks. Time collusions with them. If I can't get them or the interbranch on paper, and I can't write letters to the people with even with the like too with the Wethersfield town offices and other town offices involved with probation officers and where and how things work. Yeah. What's the name of the guy who they say was did Ray Clough have a roommate in Newington? What's that guy's name? That has something to do with the buildings next to Fox Connecticut News. Get me off fake conversations with Channel 3. Get them out. They're using wire crime act methods. They fake the transcripts. Can't communicate with them digitally. You got to do it here. You got to do it here. That's per them. They demonstrated it. It's recorded.